For me, the inspiration for this conference is actually Ruth, because I'm a practitioner. She's also a practitioner, but she's a researcher. And a lot of the research I think lab colleagues have produced have really reflected to me a lot of what we need to start to operationalize to help our clients. The sensory-based work, the work with trauma on a bottom-up level, with working with the parts of the body, with sensory integration, that has been kind of my passion for the last several years. And to be able to put together a conference where we highlight this and interweave it in the sense of, here's the research, here's the evidence, how do we take that and put it into practice is a really important reason for doing this for me.
And the inspiration for me has actually been Cathy, because, you know, we've been thinking about how we work with sensory integration and how sensations from the internal and the external world are often processed so differently in trauma, starting with the attachment relationship, for example, when your caregiver is not safe. And so this sensory input for something like that, of course, is so different as compared to a secure attachment relationship. Not to speak about also traumatic events, right? Sensory input, when you think about a traumatic experience, can be so intense, you know, visually, from an auditory perspective, of course, from a feeling perspective, often from a smell perspective. And so how can we shift those sensory experiences is something we've been thinking about, looking at brain, mind, and body. And then I met Cathy a few years ago, and she was doing expressive arts therapy, of course. And I thought, wow, you know, what an incredible way to really shift that sensory input, among other therapies. And I'm also thinking about this Warner SMART treatment for children. But, you know, these are such powerful ways of shifting sensory input that I think can make a profound difference on how we perceive our internal world as well as our external.
So on that note too, I just was thinking, you know, part of what this conference is about, as Ruth and I talked it through and thinking about what are the major concepts here. So we came up with 4 concepts. I'm sure that there'll be more that come out of these concepts, but they include balance. So, you know, thinking about how trauma in any kind of crisis throws your balance off in a lot of different ways. And mostly we've thought about that as, you know, our thinking and cognition has been thrown off, but it's the entire body. People report these sensations of being off balance. The whole idea of regulation, and I think when we say regulation, we're thinking also about not just self-regulation, of calming the body, of restoring the self, which is part of the theme, but also co-regulation, which led into another concept, which is community, because connection, social support, being able to be in synchrony with others is a restorative piece that's huge in all of this work. And then also rhythm is at this foundation, I think, with all of these elements of regulation, of balance, of being together in community in a synchronous way. Rhythm has been a real foundation, and people, I always say, you know, even in my own clients, you know, trying to help them understand where we're headed with the sensory-based work to try to find a good rhythm for them, or a rhythm that resonates with them in a restorative
Absolutely.
way.
Right, Cathy, it takes us right back to the core of what trauma is all about. Right? Balance is off. And I think that's something so ignored, right? That we don't usually talk about how our severely traumatized clients don't really know where their bodies are in space.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We don't have a good center of gravity, right? And how can you feel secure and defend yourself if you don't have that? Which of course ties into rhythm, regulation, co-regulation, and community, as you just talked about so beautifully. And I think that's something we're also trying to create with this conference, right? To create community, to create co-regulation, right? In a very open environment where we can have discussion, where we can learn from each other. And so I think it's very exciting